Hey everyone, do you want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money?
Cha-ching,
We've
cha-ching.
earned so much money from this podcast, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today.
And then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else Spotify podcasters are heard.
Yeah, because did you know that video podcasts are also on Spotify? This is a potentially paid promotion from Spotify for Podcasters.
And did you know that we have the optional option of saying, when you take the conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are a great way to get them talking?
With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads like this one, and podcast subscriptions.
And guess what, everyone? Best of all, it's totally free with no catch.
No way.
Except that it takes 1,000 listens for one single episode to get even a red dime of money
Get
from
$14.
Spotify.
So if you guys want to make sure that we get $14, tell your friends to listen.
Tell your
to this
friends to listen
episode.
Tell your friends to listen to it.
1,000 times. And hey, you know what? Let's share the personal testimonial they have for us. It says
yeah.
here that I feel like having options like video podcasts and Q&A and polls has led me to be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
They said that in the testimonial? All of that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The whole
It's a
thing.
testimonial from the CEO of Spotify.
Yeah. Well, sign up today. Theme song not included.
Welcome back to another episode of Man Cave Movie Night, the first actual potentially paid sponsorship episode of Man Cave Movie Night.
More than likely.
Fingers
I'm
crossed.
Niall,
I'm Jared.
And I, Lucas.
and today we are very excited because we are going to be talking about the cultural event that was Barbenheimer. That is Barbenheimer.
It is, yeah.
We should
Yeah.
say it's still going on, sweeping the nation. We all went down, we got together to see it together in person live. Not like live, it was pre-filmed. We didn't watch live performances.
Wait,
of
what?
the
I
movies.
thought that was really happening in front of us.
No, it was
No.
a film.
The
both
actors
of
aren't
them
really
actually were
IMAX
filmed.
size.
Yeah.
I thought they figured out how
They're
to
small
finally
like
do
you
that.
and me.
Yeah, they're
They're
the
small
same
like
small
you.
size as us.
Yeah. Dang it.
But we saw Barbie, and then we truly walked out of that theater to a bathroom, out of the bathroom, and directly into Oppenheimer. So basically 5 straight hours of watching these movies. We dressed up, it was really fun, and I can speak for all of us, so you guys just sit back this episode, because I'll take care
All
of
right,
the
easy.
whole
Okay, perfect,
thing.
nice. Yeah.
Go for it.
But I can pretty confidently say that all three of us really thoroughly enjoyed both of the movies, which was a
Yeah.
huge relief for me. I was so glad that they were both good.
Yeah,
because
seriously.
it made the whole thing just so much more exciting that it actually like kind of lived up to the hype. I feel like it would have been really depressing if either of them was just like, all right, that was okay.
Yeah,
like-
You know?
Mediocre. Well,
Yeah,
I bring
but-
up our Letterboxd all the time on this podcast.
Yeah.
We all
Shout
do.
out to Letterboxd,
And
one day
shout out to
sponsor.
Letterboxd. We between the two movies, we had a total of 30 stars we could give away between the three of us.
That's
right?
true,
And the two
yep.
movies. And we gave out all 30 stars.
Oh,
All three of us
baby.
gave both movies 5 stars, which a 30-star night with the boys.
That's
Am I right?
rare.
That's what
That's
we're all
a
hoping
rare
for.
Star
occasion.
Boys.
Yep.
Yeah. Nah, but for real, that really is a big. We should make a man cave movie night letterboxed for the podcast that has kind of
just
our
the
joint
conglomerate.
reviews of movies.
Yeah.
That could be kind
We
of
could.
fun. Anyway,
I just don't want to
Yeah.
get rid of my Letterboxd account on my phone
Well,
because I don't
can
think you
get
can have
rid of
multiple accounts logged into at the same time.
Oh well, we'll just buy.
You don't want to log in
fourth
on the
phone.
computer.
A fourth phone that we share between the three of us.
Yeah, we can do it on a computer. It's easy.
Yeah, with all
Anyway.
this ad revenue we're going to be making, we could all have
Yeah.
business
Oh, yeah.
phones
Yeah, we're gonna be
Company
making-
phone.
yes.
Yeah.
And then when you
with
see
our
movies,
company Porsches.
Wait, guys! If we get paid that $14, can we make anything that we do for this podcast a tax write-off?
No, I don't think so because there's a lot of other things.
Guys,
you have
don't
to do.
crush my dreams. Just tell
Well,
me.
also,
yes.
you're not even writing off your taxes anyway because they're
No, yeah, but
automatically
just tell me
deducted.
yes, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we
then-
can do
then
that.
yes, yeah.
Awesome.
actually,
Thanks,
yes.
guys. That's super exciting. So we definitely got to make that 1,000 listens on this episode.
But per 1,000 listens. So if we got 10,000 listens on this episode, we would get $140.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not 28. I'm going to get 38.
You know how many times
no,
we
not
could see
38, it is
Barbenheimer?
28.
No,
Dude, I'm having
10,000 is 10 times 14, which would be
Well, I was talking
140.
about getting 2,000 and we would get $28.
Yeah, that is true.
Whoa.
Anyway,
Still,
yeah.
anyway.
Welcome back to our accounting and math podcast, where we mention movies sometimes.
But hey,
2 movies that came out this weekend, and you have probably seen both or one of them.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident. This is one of the few times where a movie's been released where I don't feel like we have to hold a lot back for the conversation because so many people have gone to see these movies already.
yeah,
Yep.
big time. I think the way we'll do this episode is probably just one movie at a time. We'll do it in the order that we watched the movies. So we'll start with Barbie. Just general impressions. What'd you guys think?
Great. Very
Okay.
good.
Good.
So Oppenheimer.
Well, so let's
All
just
right,
say
moving
also, if you have not watched either of these yet, or if you've only watched one or the other, we're going to keep it spoiler-free until we tell you that it's not spoiler-free anymore. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll keep
sure.
them... Well, we might be a little bit more detailed just about how excited we are, but we don't want to ruin anything for the general experience if you haven't had time to see it or the opportunity. Because, crazily enough, I have a few friends who haven't been able to watch Barbie yet because the theaters have been sold out at the
Yeah.
times that they were able to go. So it's like some people have wanted to go and had the time to go, but they just did not even have the available option,
Yeah.
which is wild. Very rarely does that happen.
True.
So yeah, Barbie.
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 Guys,
Lucas,
I,
you go. Oh yeah, Jared then.
Jared's talking. He goes first now.
I was so excited for Barbie for no reason. Same with Oppenheimer. I mean, like, there's talent on the screen. There's talent, behind the screen or behind the camera. That's what the word is. There's just so much going into both of these movies that, yeah, you're going to get excited. And they're both going to be very stylized, going to tell very different stories. But Barbie, for some reason, that pink, that, bubbly excitement was, exactly what I wanted. Something very different from the theater experience that I haven't seen in maybe ever, right?
Yeah, seriously.
And I think it absolutely delivered. It was so stylized. It felt like you were in the dream house, when they were in the dream house parts of it. I was thinking back on it, and you could truly, it wouldn't be good, but you could, like, Robot Chicken style, replace actors with Barbies.
Yeah,
and it
true,
would
totally.
still feel the exact same.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right. Again, not as good
Yeah, it
because you
wouldn't
don't
work
get
as well.
all
but
of
yeah.
Ryan Gosling's facial reactions.
Modular features.
Oh yeah, and his just absolute.
His just
Canyon
pecs that are
between
living a
his
life
pecs.
of their own.
Each one has
His
its
pecs
own
that are
story.
just actively, consciously thinking and moving independently from the rest of his body the entire time. It was unbelievable.
The whole thing. There were so many creative, like a couple fourth wall breaks or creative little nods and moments that you could tell they had fun writing the script and making the movie. And at the same time, all the actors seemed like they were just having a lot of fun, blasting sparkles out of their bodies.
Oh, yeah, totally.
In choreographed movements and stuff. And so it was just fun to be in the theater watching things that people had fun making. And that's
Well,
my
yeah. Well,
impression
and
of Barbie.
both of our screenings were very full, but Barbie was 100% sold out. Literally
Yeah.
every single seat was taken, which I have never seen before. Even the front row had people sitting in them. It was crazy, and it
Yeah.
helped so much. It's a great movie to see with a lot of people because it's hilarious, and being able to laugh with a room of people who are laughing along with you is just so fun, especially when it's that many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some very, very good jokes that I will remember for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of can't shake the feeling that this movie to me felt like in all of the best ways. I only mean this as a compliment, and it's not gonna sound like one, but this makes sense in my brain, so just let me say it. And that is, this movie kind of felt like seeing a high school play with all of your friends in it. Because
Sure.
it was like you could just tell that they were having such a good time, and they were in it, and they were being the characters, but you also could see not just Ken, but Ryan Gosling being Ken. It wasn't a lose myself in the character and I am this character now. It almost was like you were there seeing Ryan Gosling playing the part intentionally, like, so that he was still really present there. And it felt like that for every single person in the movie, you know?
Totally.
To the point that the people that weren't Barbies, the mother and the daughter, felt so different from the rest of the cast because they did feel like they were in their characters. They were actually their characters. And so it was this really weird kind of surreal feeling of almost like knowing Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling enough on like a personal level to make it feel like I'm just watching my friends doing something fun. And it skyrocketed the fun factor. And it made a lot of those jokes, the little kind of references and the kind of meta jokes that they had every now and then feel so much funnier. Because it was just like, oh yeah, this is like there was a reference to actual Margot Robbie where they used Margot Robbie's name in a joke. And it was, in any other movie, I would have been like, okay, eye roll, stupid.
Eye roll.
But with this approach of this movie, it was perfect.
Oh, it was well done.
I loved it. Also,
What's with Margot Robbie in those kind of actor referential scenes? Like
I know, The Big
The
Short.
Big Short. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of, seriously.
She's I guess drawn to those roles that get referenced, but I also will say, as fun and zany, I dare say, that this movie is, it also certainly made me cry at about I don't know, probably 20 or 30 minutes in. There's a specific scene involving a bus stop that it was so well done, and it was so emotional, and it made me so just like, it made me feel lucky to be a person and to be alive, you know? And it was really awesome. And I don't know. I think we ought to also pay attention to the fact that this movie isn't just like goofy, haha, funny. There is a lot of heart in this movie as well.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think honestly, every heartbreaking facial expression of Margot Robbie just hit me so hard. Because she's sad throughout this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of characters who become sad.
Yeah, and just, it's heartbreaking. Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just loved this movie. I think we're so lucky that both of these movies were so good, because it just made the whole event so much more fun. And I think the way to do it is Barbie then Oppenheimer, because if you finish Oppenheimer, you are in no mood to watch another movie. You are in no mood to do anything, really. And so having Barbie to kind of like prime you, like, oh wow, that was a ton of fun. This was a great movie. Let's go watch another great movie. Is if you're going to do a double feature. If you're going to watch them on different days, then yeah, whatever, do what you want. But if you could do them back to back like this, if we had gotten out of Oppenheimer, I would be like, nah, I don't really want to watch another movie right now, man.
Yeah.
Especially
You would have
'cause of how
started with
long,
Barbie, and I think it's a Lizzo song at the beginning, and you're just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what?
This is not
You're like
where I
still
ought to
finishing your cigarette.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not
it's
ready for
like
this.
Hold
it's
your
like I
hat
saw
below
somebody
your
say
eyes.
it's Barbenheimer. It's not Oppenheimer.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
watch
that's-
Barbie
yeah.
first.
You
and
do
then
Barbenheimer.
you go into Oppenheimer. But I also, that double feature, I can 100% see myself doing that down the road with friends. Saying like, oh, guys, you want to do Barbenheimer this weekend? And
Yeah,
let's
seriously.
get together and
Yeah.
watch Barbie and then watch Oppenheimer right after, you know?
It really is crazy that these two movies came out on the same day. Because I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but I remember that was like the initial plan. It's been the plan for a long time. And I'm like, there's no way they're both going to still come out on these days. But what ended up happening, because in theory, that is a terrible decision. Because it's just going to undercut one of the movies. 9 times out of 10. That's always what happens when they try and release 2 movies from different studios on the same day. One of them does well and one of them does poorly. What actually ended up happening is both of them ended up doing way better than they would have otherwise, which is just mind-boggling. This weekend was like one of the biggest box office weekends of all time because people were so excited to watch both movies. And the other crazy thing is part of Oppenheimer doing it so well is that people couldn't get tickets to Barbie. And so they were just feeding off of each other's ability to make a ton of money. And like, so Oppenheimer made $80 million this weekend, which is just a great box office opening for any movie, especially a movie that's
let alone
rated
a
R.
rated R.
Yeah, and especially considering Barbie came out this weekend and made $160 million on the same weekend, which is one of the highest opening weekends of all time. Definitely the highest of this year. 80 million is higher than most of the opening weekends this year for a lot of huge movies. And they both were on the same weekend. It's just unprecedented, unbelievable. It's so cool that this happened.
It's definitely a 1 + 1 = 3 situation.
It absolutely is. Yep.
Each one on their own would have done well. People would have been excited for it. But something about these incredibly clashing tones, very different movies, very different audiences that they're targeting, being back to back. That's just so special.
It's awesome.
It really is.
This is a cultural event in film that will never be replicated to the same degree.
Yep, absolutely. There's no way you could do it again because you can't plan it like this. It wasn't planned like Universal did Oppenheimer and Warner Brothers did Barbie, and it wasn't like, oh, hey guys, let's try and make this Barbenheimer thing. Obviously, they each independently wanted their movies to do well, and then people just picked it up and were like, hey, dude, Barbenheimer's a thing. Yeah. And it worked out 100%. Way better than it should have, but I'm very enthused that it did because both movies are totally deserving of people watching them. They're both great.
So, on that, let's go into Oppenheimer a little bit. Oppenheimer personally was the one I was just like leaning more towards, you know? I was kind of like, this is the one I'm here for. And really, it exceeded any expectation that I had for it. I loved every second of it. It was one of those movies where a lot of the time I feel like a 3-hour movie, people get out of it when they loved it and they're like, man, that didn't feel like 3 hours at all. Yeah. It certainly felt like 3 hours to me. That did not mean that I wanted it to end. Yeah. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Seriously.
no, this feels like 3 hours, and I almost feel like intentionally. It was like the movie is kind of designed to weigh down on you and like make you feel like you're just like slogging through mud and you just like it's like work, that movie, to like really sit there and like just enjoy it. Not work in that it's really hard to understand like some of other Christopher Nolan movies, as much as just emotionally and mentally and intellectually in terms of like what it makes you think about. It is very, very heavy, and I just thought it was done so well. The tension that it created with the music and lack of music in certain scenes, to the point where it was just like, okay, I don't even know if this scene is actually tense or not, but it's pulling the rubber band anyway. And just like, it makes you realize that for Oppenheimer, just every day was being worn down by that kind of like inner psychological tension of what he was creating, what he was dealing with, and the potential repercussions. It was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those movies where every shot, every frame that they put in front of you is a painting, and you are lost in it, looking at either the characters or just images of fire, like whatever they put in front of you, it's absorbing. You are totally engrossed in the movie, and having that on IMAX, which is why we made the big effort to get together to go see it, was to see it on the huge screen. Yeah. Definitely worth it. And I thought the whole movie felt like that. Felt very intentional. It felt like every shot, every character was put in place to tell this story, and you just got lost in it. You got lost in each scene, and after 3 hours, you're like, okay, that was the movie, right? Because you're so lost in the story the whole time. Obviously, like Niall said, it did feel long, especially coming out of a movie, but it didn't feel not enjoyable because of that.
Totally.
I think the biggest thing that struck me was at the beginning. It has that quote, and Lucas was telling me this is from the book it's based off, but the comparison between Prometheus, right, bringing fire
Prometheus,
to man, and then Oppenheimer bringing
the atomic bomb to mankind.
Is that same kind of idea of the world is changed now, right? And this Oppenheimer is not a legend. It's a human person who did something world-changing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That stuck with me the whole movie while each piece of the story was laid down, tracks in front of you.
Yeah. The other part of that quote that just makes it so much heavier is, for bringing fire to man, Prometheus was tied to a rock and tortured for eternity.
Yeah.
And it's a human can't endure that same, because a human's gonna die. And so it's just oh my goodness. If I start getting specific with it, I'm just gonna be too excited. But
oh man, this movie was just so good. It was really, because Nolan, I love Nolan, we love Nolan, but he's had some ones that I have not loved as much recently. But I did rewatch Interstellar again, and I was just like, man, he knows how to do it. He just knows how to make a great movie. And I just wanted this one to be good so badly. I just wanted this one to be bad.
Just take him down. Just get him out of here.
And it totally blew away my expectations. There are certain horrific elements to it, in the sense of being a horror movie almost, which work super effectively just in the existential dread type of it. Kind of just the subject matter. And, oh man, it is just so engrossing. It truly does deserve to be watched on the largest format you can, because the surround sound system and just the huge scale and scope of the movie is just so deserving of watching it on the largest format possible. And it was really, really helpful to keeping you involved and keeping you engrossed, because it was just so, so good. I seriously have not thought about a lot other than wanting to rewatch this since we finished watching it.
Yeah.
And it is 3 hours long. However, it is rare is the occasion where I will be watching a movie and I check my watch, not because I want it to be over, because I'm afraid of when it will be done.
Yeah,
because
I want
I'm
to see
no.
how much left I get to see.
Exactly. It's like, oh man, there's only a half hour left. I'm just loving this so much, and it's a 3 hour movie. It's a huge time commitment, but it is totally worthwhile. It is totally well made, totally well done. I just loved every part of it, and I truly can't wait. I'm gonna rewatch again before it leaves IMAX, just because I just want to revisit that, and then I'm gonna probably maybe I'll watch it again after that. Who knows? But I want to read the book, finish reading the book that is based on. I started reading it, and then I just stopped because I was like, I might as well just watch the movie. And now I'm really interested to learn more about him as well. Then just one final thing I want to say is, at the beginning of the year, we predicted the Best Picture winner, and we said whatever. I said Dune 2 just because I want to. I think Dune 2 will be cool. But I genuinely think this one could win. I think it could be the one of Christopher Nolan's movies to win Best Picture and to win him his first Oscar. If it's going to be one, I think it's going to be this one.
Yeah.
So that's obviously,
by the way,
hot take, random, has no real information behind it, because we've still got 6 more months of movies to come out. But that being said, I think this is going to be the one.
No.
Yeah. And that is something that I think a lot of people didn't know. I didn't know it, but Christopher Nolan has 0 Oscars.
Yep.
And to me, like, of course, he's had less opportunities to win an Oscar than, say, Leonardo DiCaprio had. But
Yeah,
to
true.
me, it's the same kind of, how is that
Injustice.
possible? You
Well,
know,
he had
like,
never even been nominated for Best Director until Dunkirk. That was his first nomination
No
for Best
way,
Director.
really?
Yep. He'd only been nominated as a producer or writer.
that's
Maybe
absolutely
actually
crazy
even
to me.
just as a producer. Inception might have gotten the writing credit, but he never won for any of them. So
But he's had films like actors in his films win, right? Like Heath Ledger won, right?
yes, yep.
Yeah,
So
the
he's
posthumous.
directed performance, and there have been his movies have won Oscars, like they've won technical awards, but he himself has never won one.
Oh,
Jeez, man. That's
Oppenheimer
crazy.
sweep. I really think we could get
I
Oppenheimer sweep
hope
because
so.
even Ludwig Göransson, who did the score for this, I think he could get another Oscar because he won one
Yeah.
for Black Panther, but I think
Yeah.
he could get another one for this one because it was great.
I think another thing, going back to a little bit what we talked about in the Asteroid City episode,
Oh,
when
yeah.
we were talking about like kind of director, like things where you see it and you're like, okay, that's this director. Christopher Nolan has a bunch of them, but one of them that I hadn't really thought about until this movie was something where he has one shot that is clearly the same continuous shot that is just like kind of intercut into the movie for like dramatic purpose. Say when they're building the bomb and they're like putting all of the little kind of hexagons into place.
Oh, I see, yeah.
It's very clearly just one shot that they just filmed and they're zooming in on it while they're constructing it. But then he takes that shot and he clips it into like 5 different clips so that it also signifies like the progress that they're making on actually putting the bomb together in terms of like the work that they're doing to figure the bomb out, but then intercut with that obviously one take that's just cut into pieces that just adds so much tension every time you see it, and it's just panning closer and closer into it, and you're just like, it's
like,
so intense. Also, there are few directors right now that could have a scene of an atomic bomb exploding and also in that same movie have just like an interrogation and have the interrogation be as stressful and intense, if not more so, than the atomic bomb. And that thing, like with the hyper exposed light in the room and the shaking wall, it was just like, this is
Yeah.
beautiful. This is like art in its perfect form, basically.
Well, the other crazy thing is that he did not use CGI to create any of those effects.
Yeah.
All of the
0
cutaways-
CGI shots in the movie.
Yep. All the cutaways and stuff, they overlay, they superimpose some of the shots, obviously, because you can't blow up a bomb right in front of all these actors. But the bomb explosions themselves are real. They were created and then they are able, so that special effects is used, obviously. But it's not like where in like an end game where an entire shot is just fully CG. It's just all that stuff was done through the power of the pre-production and the physical world and the practical effects. Even the
In
little like
camera,
stars,
forced
and the-
perspective stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So even certain shots where it's like, how could you do that? It's all they created the effect and they were able to put it on the computer. So obviously the computers are used, of course, but it's not like oh, there's a Groot here. He's CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a Groot.
there's nothing like that. But
Also, Nolan
it's-
loves his miniatures. I don't know. I'm interested to find out what in this movie was shots of miniatures.
yeah.
But in
And
just
if the
about every
scale-
Nolan movie, you'll have, extreme miniature shots that are just like hyper realistic, but built to like 100th real size. And then they
Yeah.
film it, and it just like,
Yeah.
you cannot tell.
It's
I
like
really
the
do-
snow base in Inception that they blow up at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just
I do
one
wonder.
giant miniature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how small the explosions were in this. Like if they were really scaled down and then they just brought them up. Because a lot of the stuff, like either
hard to tell.
explosions or the particles and things like that, like the little spinning effects were done underwater. And
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to get, like, they put flakes of silver and, like, blue light on them in different directions and stuff. Like, it's just so well shot. and it's very well edited. Speaking back to the horror point,
Yeah.
the person who edited this also edited Hereditary and Midsummer. And so she
Really?
very
I
much
didn't know
knows
that.
how to create a kind of existential dread story with the edit. And so some of that cutaway
the
stuff,
edit.
I'm curious how much was her and how much was him. A lot of it I'm sure was collaborative, but you can tell she's very good at doing a kind of horror edit because it was
Very
edited
interesting.
like a horror movie.
I did not
That
know
is
that. Also,
interesting.
you should share the fact. Maybe we'll tread kind of into more spoilery territory now, just because I
Okay.
think this is a cool fact that I have not been seeing this around, and so I think it would be cool for you to share. But what was the difference between the color and the black and white?
Yeah, so yeah,
In
let's just say from
Oppenheimer.
here on out we'll talk about spoilers for Barbie and Oppenheimer. So if you haven't seen them yet and you're interested in one or the other, from here on out, we're not going to spoil anything huge, but yeah.
Yeah.
The difference between black and white is objective and color is subjective. And I think the easiest way to tell of that, because he said that outright, but if you are paying attention, the easiest way you'd be able to discern that is that, the whole movie, there's that little scene with Robert Downey Jr. and Einstein and Oppenheimer, and that is in black and white every time you see it until the very end, which is how the last scene of the movie, it's in color because the Senate aide who's talking to Robert Downey Jr. says, well, you don't even know what he was talking about. He might not have even been talking about you. And so it basically then just takes a perspective of what they could have been talking about that would have made Einstein give that character the cold shoulder. And
Yeah.
that scene, that last scene, was just so well done. And again, it's just all in the edit because it's not exactly linear. Like it does a lot of juxtapositions between time and things like that, but it still starts him as a kid and then we see him evolve. It doesn't throw anything for a real loop, but there's just multiple storylines going on at the same time from different parts of his life. And just culminating all with that at the end is just amazing. Another thing I want to say as well is the de-aging, quote unquote, was totally done through makeup and it was super effective. At no point where I was like, oh man, I can totally tell that that's just a really dumb looking Cillian Murphy, whether he was younger or older than he was supposed to be. For all the actors too, Emily Blunt looked great. All the characters they did de-aging or aging up for.
looked
The
amazing.
aging
It was all makeup and it was
unbelievable.
super well done, and it just proves you can use makeup. You don't have to do this dumb deep faking. Obviously, for certain characters, maybe you should just recast them. And Harrison Ford is 80 years old, but that's neither here nor there. But just speaking to the effectiveness of the makeup in this movie, again, could totally win an Oscar just for that.
Totally.
Yeah, I truly don't have a ton of spoiler talk,
For either of them, yeah.
We've covered so much that if we're going into spoilers, it's just talking about specific jokes in Barbie or specific plot points that like all of Ryan Gosling's journey in Barbie was just so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good.
But
Freaking
like,
hilarious.
yeah.
I want to add on Oppenheimer before we go back to Barbie because there is more Barbie stuff to be talked about. But and of course, if you follow me on Letterboxd, you'd already know this about me. But I think that my internet may be crapped out, but I'm going to keep talking and we can figure it out in the edit.
We can hear you.
I have always been like super afraid of atomic bombs. Yeah. I think I'm back in the
you're
Zoom
back.
call
Welcome
now.
back.
Right on. Cool. I've always been like way afraid of atomic bombs. I remember like I have this weird memory of like learning about atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs from a friend of mine in like my backyard when I was a little kid. And I remember it like scaring me. And like to the same, not necessarily to the same degree. I won't claim this same horror, but I when I hear people talking about like growing up during the Cold War and saying like, oh yeah, we were always just scared that like a nuclear strike was around the corner and things like that. I like whenever I hear that, I can really relate to it because when I learned about them, I was just like, well, that's just a thing that can happen.
That's gonna happen.
Like, yeah. And I was always really scared of it. And of course I have kind of just slipped into like blissful ignorance.
threw you back in,
those
baby.
like childhood times. And seriously, this movie made me feel those same fears that I haven't felt in a long time since I was a little kid. But the thing that sucks about it, as opposed to other scary movies, is that I'm like, oh no, this is bringing back an actual fear that I have about a thing that is real and actually can and maybe will happen, you know? Of just like, okay, so he made this atomic bomb. And like that shot of just like the cloud line with all of like the missile like lines trailing up from it is so horrifying to me.
Oh yeah.
And there was a line like 20 minutes in that wasn't even necessarily about this, but something was mentioned that just kind of reminded me like, yeah, no, atomic bombs are real and like pretty much every country has them now. And like pretty much the end of the world is like one bad conversation away between world leaders.
And it's crazy. The literal end of the world. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, all right, well, now I'm terrified again. And I honestly am still living in that. And I'm just kind of like, as much as I love this movie, I really just kind of can't wait to not have it on my mind anymore because I'm stressed about atomic bombs now.
My suggestion is go watch some of those Mission Impossible movies again so you can remember that the IMF
we're protected.
will always stop
nuclear
war. Any
out.
codes getting out of hand? No, we've got a team on
That's
that.
True. That's true. But it also is interesting. Recently, I can't remember who it was. I think he might be one of the people that does OpenAI, that company, talking about Mission Impossible and the atomic bomb, because this relates to both a little bit. He apparently quoted Oppenheimer in a recent conversation where they were talking about like the dangers of AI. And he basically said, I think the quote is something along the lines of, this is definitely paraphrasing, but if I hadn't done it, then somebody else would have. And I couldn't have guaranteed that the other person would have been a good man. So at least I made it, you know? Like it was going to get made anyway. And you feel a lot of that in Oppenheimer, because it's not like we're secretly working on this thing and nobody else even knows that it's possible. It was a race to the atomic bomb. And so it was like, at least it was made by the good guys, you know, not from Japan's point of view,
of course,
but it's one of those things that's just really interesting. We're still seeing stuff like that in the world happening now, say with AI or whatever, but there are basically canon events in the world's future that are coming where, okay, this thing is going to be created. All we can really hope for is that it's created by a good person instead of a bad one, you know?
Yep.
And that's one of my favorite things about this movie, is that you end understanding that Oppenheimer isn't sure if he's a good person. He's not sure if it was a good thing that he's the one that made it, you know?
Yeah.
And that is so frightening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, there are so many things about it that I'm just still thinking about. And if a movie can make me think about it this frequently, days after I saw it,
well done.
it's a very good sign that the movie did what it needed to do, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do we want to backtrack into spoilers, or do we just want to keep going into questions?
Let's go
do
into
some
questions.
Yeah, let's do some questions.
Also, just quick spoiler for Barbie, I guess, just one brief thing. The musical sequence was so well done and fit so well into the movie that I honestly kind of didn't even realize that the rest of the movie hadn't been a musical until like conversations I had post movie. Like it fit in so well.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was, there were so many little things that were just so effective with that. And just they created such a great world for you to live in during the movie. It was just totally convincing. At no point where I was like, I don't know about that. It was just so fun and totally got you into it as soon as it started. It's just the same vibe, and it just keeps full throttle the whole way through.
Yep. All right, we can do questions now. I just wanted to talk about that sequence because I thought it was really important that got mentioned.
Oh man, yeah, what a ride. Both movies. Obviously
Yeah.
very different rides. You're getting
Yeah.
off of It's a Small World and getting on Tower of Terror. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Both fun.
For sure.
Both
Different-
fun, but
for
very
different
different
ways.
still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, but the casts are amazing. Not for both movies, right? And we talked a little bit in our Wes Anderson episode recently. There are just some directors that people flock to, where, you know, a Wes Anderson movie's being made, and so you have all of his returning cast, but also a bunch of new cast members coming in, and it felt like the same for Christopher Nolan in this movie, as well as, I mean, Barbie is just a fun project, and it seemed to get a lot of big names because of that. Now, I wanted to make that note, but really my question is going to be, what would the movies be like, and how would it change? How would it, like, obviously I don't think it would improve either, but how would it change if you took the casts of each movie and swapped them, right?
And who
Instead
would
of
play
having,
what?
yeah, who would play
Yeah.
what would the movie look like? Would how would Cillian Murphy be in
As
Barbie?
Ken.
And how would Ryan Gosling be in
As
Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Honestly, Ryan
Man.
Gosling has got range, and Cillian Murphy, I'm sure, does too. But man, like, so would Florence Pugh, you think, or Emily Blunt be Barbie?
Probably
I
Florence
think-
Pugh.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
doesn't fit as well. Obviously,
doesn't-
Margot
no.
Robbie is kind of perfectly cast, but
Yeah,
I think probably Margot Robbie, or not Margot Robbie. Florence Pugh
Robbie.
would be the main
Pugh.
Barbie, and then Emily
Yeah.
Blunt would also be another Barbie.
Yeah.
But man, Ryan Gosling as Oppenheimer, that is an interesting one to think of, because I don't think that he wouldn't have done a good job. I still think
No,
he
he'd be
could have
great.
done really well.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy was perfectly cast, and he did an excellent job in that role. But I think Ryan Gosling is just such a good actor that he could have done a great
Yeah.
job as well.
I
Yeah,
think in
totally.
Barbie you'd have a bunch of good Kens in, you know, Jack Quaid and
Yep. Oh yeah.
Josh Peck
Yeah.
and Roderick Rules.
Yeah,
right.
Devin Bostick, I think is his name.
That sounds right.
The
Yeah,
name
it's
we
something
learned
Boston.
after that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Oh, he'll still be Roderick Rules for a while.
But
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I think that it's an interesting question because we all knew that Barbie had an all-star cast. And we
Yeah.
knew that Oppenheimer was going to have a good cast because it's Christopher Nolan, but a lot of the cast was kind of kept under wraps.
yeah, they
at least-
promoted the big
at
At least they were
Yeah.
promoting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. In
But then-
terms of like outward promotion, like you could find it on IMDb, stuff like that. But it wasn't like this movie has all of these people,
Yeah,
which was
yeah,
a
yeah,
big
yeah.
thing for Barbie, you know, like, no, this
Yeah,
movie has
yep.
all of these people. So it,
And therefore watch it.
yeah, which is a tactic as old as time, you know, there's nothing
Yep,
wrong
of
with
course.
advertising
Yeah.
your movie that way. But,
movie, yeah.
because Jared came up with this question before we saw these movies.
Yeah, before
And
we even went in.
I was kind of thinking like, well, I can put people from the Barbie movie into Oppenheimer, but I don't know how I'm going to put people from Oppenheimer into Barbie. And then there were so many people in Oppenheimer,
people.
and I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
okay, yeah, we could probably figure this out.
I think Robert Downey Jr. as Will Ferrell could work.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that
As
would
the
have been
It
Mattel
would be
boss.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be
The,
so awesome.
The mother could have been Emily Blunt. I'm thinking now. Emily Blunt could have been the mother in the real world who played with Florence Pugh's Barbie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the mother could have been one of the two, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
either Emily Blunt or Florence
Probably.
Pugh.
She
Yeah.
probably would have been Emily Blunt. Yeah.
She probably would have been. Oh, really? I was going to say she probably would have been Florence Pugh.
Sure. Either way, I don't know.
Possibly,
She's
yeah.
just a little bit
No,
older, but they
because
could have
you'd
just
probably.
de-aged
I don't
her.
know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell,
Yep.
especially because Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt are both like two of my biggest Hollywood crushes. So I'm like, I don't know which one is like the more like sexy and sensual of the two to be the mistress.
Oh, yeah.
I think Kate McKinnon actually.
Yeah, it was. He really.
Kate McKinnon. Oh yeah, Kate McKinnon. She was so funny, by the way.
She was so funny. Her role was great. Everyone, Simu Liu was another standout in Barbie that I was really surprised by.
Big time.
He could have done whose role would he have had? He could have done that one little role that Rami Malek has.
I was going to say he could have been Rami
Malek. He could have done that. He could have just come in, had an incredible performance for what he was in, and then just like bounced, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking with Rami Malek, when he showed up, I was like, man, this is such a small role. I think just people want to be a part of the project, and then by the end, you're like, no, this is actually a significant person in the story.
A key role.
A key player.
Yep. But it does do that to you at the beginning where it's like he doesn't really do it a whole lot, but when he comes around, it's awesome.
Would anyone be able to out Alan Michael Cera?
No, I really don't think so.
I just don't
Roderick.
Pulling someone from that cast, it would be Roderick, definitely. He would be
Roderick would have crushed it.
But Michael Cera did such a good job. And seeing Michael Cera as one of the scientists working on the Manhattan Project would have just been
for real.
He's trying so hard.
It would have been similar to like a Josh Peck, you know? You see Drake and Josh Kid showing up, you're like, hey, I mean,
you're like, okay, sure, I guess.
Cool.
That's funny, because you know, like, Christopher Nolan probably has zero care or nostalgia about those shows or movies from the early 2000s.
Absolutely.
He's just like, oh, cool, you auditioned and did great with your audition, and so you're going to get cast in this role.
Yeah.
And you have, like, somewhat of a name, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Did you see, there was Christopher Nolan was, like, a guest on either a radio show or a podcast or something. He was just calling in. But they asked him, like, what are some of your remote drops, which is like a movie that when you're scrolling through the channels, you see this movie and you're like, okay, dropping the remote, I'm on this movie now, and you'll just watch it till the end. And he cited Talladega Nights as like one of his main ones. He was like, and they're like, is that real? Is that actually your remote drop? And there's a bit of silence, and then Christopher Nolan says, if you ain't first, you're last. And they just like, they're like, oh.
That's so funny.
Yeah, dude. So he might know, more about the comedy world than we give him credit for.
Yeah, totally.
That also means he could do a lot with Will Ferrell.
He's got kids that would be watching this stuff. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell has some good like dramatic chops as well. But at the same time, he's one of the funniest actors around. He did such a good job in Barbie too. And the guy, so his like main assistant guy is from this show called Stathlets Flats, which no one has seen. It's a British comedy, and I was just so happy he was in it because no one knows who he is. He's just some Greek actor, and I was like, man, he's in Barbie. I love that he's in this because I didn't know he was in it until he showed up. I was like, whoa, it was he, and he did.
Wait, which guy are we talking about?
Not the guy who comes in to the boardroom meeting to pitch the idea of, oh, hey, Barbie's gone. It's the guy who's like to his right. It's like his right-hand man, the one who can take the most play and the most reliance.
Yeah.
Funny.
I think with a good cast, you can do a lot. And
they would no matter what the movie is.
Be fine. But, I mean, they were perfectly cast, so...
yeah, they were perfectly cast as is, but I just love the idea of swapping them in your brain and seeing who fits into what roles. Because you could totally bring a smaller player in one movie into a bigger role in another one as well.
Yeah,
so.
Big time.
Yeah. Send us your casting
True.
Yeah, true, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Niall, what was your question that you were wanting to talk to us about?
I'm not going to lie to you. I cannot remember.
Wasn't it if you could drop an atomic bomb on any country?
What's your least favorite country?
What's your least favorite country or city?
What's your least favorite country? Oh, now I can tell you guys. This is my fun thing that I can tell you guys. I don't have a question, but here's my fun fact.
That's an interesting segue from that joke into. Hey, I'm so excited to tell you something.
We were talking about least favorite country, and I was trying to think of a way to make that joke about Barbie instead of Oppenheimer. And then I remembered my fun fact, which is I told you guys that Ted Cruz was campaigning that Barbie had pro-communist China propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to hear the pro-communist China propaganda?
I do.
Please,
I'm very curious, actually.
It is in the scene with Weird Barbie. She is showing a map of Barbie Land and then a map of the real world. And the real world map is very clearly just kind of like crudely drawn. It's designed to look like a child had seen a picture of a map of the world and then drew a map of the world.
Yeah, and that was,
And
yep.
so all of Asia, or most of Asia, is labeled China. And it goes down onto a certain, I guess, string of islands that is like disputed territory that communist China claims that they have like control over, but it's like a disputed thing, and it's colored the same color as the rest of the China continent.
Oh,
And
brother.
apparently it's like it's supporting communist China, and it's like, no, there's no way they were trying to sneak a political statement into that map that's shown
For
for
a half
1
second.
second of the
Yeah,
Well, I
it says-
think now
It says Vietnam banned Barbie.
Yeah, now that you
Vietnam
mention
banned
that.
Is that what
it,
you're saying?
it's yeah.
Now that you mention it, I think Warner Brothers came out and said that was totally unintentional. It was just a drawing. It was not any sort of political statement. They're like, and like Greta Gerwig or whoever was like, yeah, it was just exactly what Niall said. It's just someone drew it to make it seem like a kid drew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Barbie was not hiding their political, like, feelings,
No.
you know? Any
No, not at
statements
all.
that they were making were very clear and very
Yeah.
intentional for the
Poignant.
story.
Yeah.
Sure.
And but at the same time, it's like if you're going into a Barbie movie and not expecting it to be pro women, like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's a Barbie. It's like it's been a girl's toy forever, and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It's I saw this
Well,
post on Reddit that was like there are 2 movies that came out this weekend, Barbie and Oppenheimer. One of them is about a little girl's toy, and one of them is about the creation of the bomb that could detonate and wipe out all mankind. Guess which one is stirring up more political controversy?
Woof.
So funny. But I really did, after more reflection, I've thought that, like, any of the so-called political stuff in Barbie, I don't even feel like as a political, it's just
No.
the actual,
It's
like,
just
state
calling
of
it out
society.
how it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
There's,
how
like,
it is. Yeah.
I would say there's some stuff, like, about, women's labor, things like that, that's obviously more political. But, like, the stuff that the mom says about women to, like, wake the Barbies up, that's not political. That's just, like, society's expectations.
Yeah.
That's the same stuff that we used to hear about, like, teen girls looking at GQ models and then crying because they didn't look the same. That's what
Yeah.
she's talking about.
Exactly.
That's not politicized. That's societal.
That's just what it's like to live.
expectations. of
Yeah,
women.
exactly.
And it also, like, it of course doesn't go nearly into the same depth that it does with women, but it touches on those aspects of a man too, with small conversations with Ken and certain, like, societal expectations. This movie, I don't think in any way is anti-man as much as it is anti-dominance of one side, because
Yeah.
it shows the problems with both, and the solution to all of it is that they end up in a more
Coexisting.
equitable and more
Yeah.
coexisting situation. Like, no, that's the point of it, is that
Yeah.
it's equality, And
Yeah.
so
and it is
Yeah.
funny that it's the 2 hyperbolic states of it, where the real world for the most part is primarily run by men, and then Barbie Land is 100% run by women. It's run by women. It's saying, hey, look, we need to find a balance between this quote unquote fantasy where women are running everything
Right.
and the real world where there's that joke where Will Ferrell was like, oh, come on, we've had one female CEO, and I'm pretty sure we might have had a second. Like, it's just such a crazy concept that some people, for some reason, still have a hard time grasping. It's like, yeah, there's a huge disparity between the amount of, like, women in positions of leadership, especially at large corporations. And it's just like, well, no, we had that one
Yeah, the
CEO from the
girls'
90s.
toy company board is just all men.
All
who
men,
look the
not
same.
a single, yep. Yeah, it was crazy. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
it was really effective in the way that it did it, because it made it funny, but it also made it so that you got thinking about it. It was like, yeah, this is a good point, but it's also really funny the way that it's presenting it to you.
Yeah.
So I loved it for that as well, for sure.
no doubt, son.
No doubt.
But yeah, I
So-
still can't remember what question I had.
No doubt and no question.
Well, I've got another question.
Yeah,
Great.
well, isn't... okay, this question, I'm going to say it, and I think it might be Jared's next one, just so we get...
No, yeah, you
but
go for it.
The idea of what would be another power combo of 2 movies that could come out on the same weekend.
Yeah.
Was that Jared's question or Niall's question already?
Yeah,
That
I
wasn't
was talking
mine.
about that one as
Okay,
well.
yeah, well,
For context
mine.
on that one, in 2008 we had Mamma Mia and The Dark Knight that released on the same day. So
Which
The
is very
Dark Mama
interesting.
walked so that Barbenheimer could run.
Yeah.
What would be the next duo that would fly?
Yeah. Oh wow, that's glorious.
Yeah.
So one duo that almost did happen was Batman versus Superman and Captain America: Civil War almost came out on the same
Right.
day,
Oh.
and I would have loved to have seen that happen.
The duel of the
because
duels.
the duel of the duels, exactly. So something along those lines where it's like two movies from big studios. They don't have to be superheroes necessarily, but I mean, for the sake of the question, I think that one would have been really cool to see. It was
Yeah.
DC who ended up moving because Marvel, of course, is like, we have the confidence that we're gonna be more successful than you, so you better move.
Yeah. They literally did the line from Civil War, that plant yourself like a tree and say, no, you move.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I just love that idea of the dueling duels, but it didn't end up happening. What I will say though, since just for the future, I think it could be really cool. Well, not cool, but I think it would be very interesting if James Gunn's DC becomes successful. They do end up releasing a Marvel and a DC movie on the same day, and then seeing which one does well. Because if DC is on the uptick and Marvel is still on a downward spiral at that point, it could be really cool to see DC
Yeah.
beat out a Marvel movie.
And just
could be.
kind of turn
Another
the tides a
thing
bit.
that I have had a dream of for a long time is during an era of DC good movie and Marvel good movie, while they're doing multiverse stuff, which hopefully we move away from. But
Not for another 5 years, buddy.
imagine two movies coming out on the same day, a DC and a Marvel movie, but both of them having like a shared scene of like multiverse intersection.
Oh, interesting.
But like
That would
filmed
be
from
very
both
interesting.
sides, like just via collaboration, like, oh yeah, we could do this in a way that'll make both of us more money, and like I could see it happening on a business end of things, just the same as comic crossovers have happened and things like that.
Totally. Yeah.
But I also don't want that to happen now.
no. Give
it
us
could have
10
been, yeah.
Give us
at one
10
point
years
it
of
could have
DC.
been cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we are now
But,
10 years out from the DCEU starting with Man of Steel, and we have gotten maybe one okay movie. And Marvel has been around for
Being
15 years.
Man of
and-
Steel.
Yeah. The first one, they haven't ever topped it. Well, for some people, that is the case.
Yeah.
So 10 years from James Gunn's start, which will be 2025 to 2035, if by that point we've got, at least some good DC content, that would be big thumbs up in my book.
Yeah, it would be very cool to see. I mean, we've gotten a lot of these kind of dueling movies throughout, just like the last 20 years. Movies that are similar topic coming out right next to each other, like Ants Bug's Life is a great example.
Yeah,
Yep. Darkest Hour and Dunkirk.
Yeah,
Yeah, both about
that's
Dunkirk.
true. Yeah. White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen.
Yep.
Right? Like
Totally.
those kind of movies. It'd be interesting to have two movies with a similar topic but different approaches come out
On
at
the
a
same
similar
day,
time.
yeah.
So
Totally.
like Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of multiverse
Yeah.
movie, and then another non-Marvel kind of look at like a character piece where there's different scenes and different
Yeah.
realities. That'd be super
I-
sick.
I think an interesting approach that I can think of, just that would take on a topic that's kind of a hot topic right now, is say another movie comes out the same day as Dead Reckoning Part 2. But this movie is like some art house movie about an AI that has gained sentience. It's basically her, but from the other side. It's the story of
interesting.
the actual
Of the AI.
AI like falling in love with a person. And so you get the story of the horrors of AI from Dead Reckoning, but
Yeah.
then you also get just like an absolute like AI love story
Interesting. Yeah, that could be really cool.
kind of at the same time, but told with the AI as the protagonist
Yeah,
could be kind of
very
interesting.
different perspectives and approaches
Yeah.
to a similar
to
theme.
a similar topic.
Like obviously, it could be the complete opposite, right? Like how
Yeah.
Barbie theme and topic and Oppenheimer is very different.
That also had surprising amounts of crossover, though, in general.
Yes,
broad
some of
themes
the
of,
broad themes. Some
what
of them,
is
definitely.
who am I? What is existence? What is my participation in the history of what's my legacy type stuff? Where I was like, oh yeah, that's actually kind of similar.
Yeah, it was interesting walking out of Barbie and thinking, I think there are going to be some themes that were actually way more similar. Going into Oppenheimer than we were.
But I see what you're saying. Where those movies are polar opposites, whereas.
But
how do you make movies that have the same themes but that are very different movies still?
Yeah, my biggest thought is just having one, maybe more of a popular director, kind of like a Chris Nolan or like a Spielberg or something, at the same time as a Pixar movie. Both, going to be very different in tone. Well, maybe Spielberg is a little Pixar as far as the tone. Very adventure happy. But you know what I mean.
I see what you're saying.
Like having two movies that people could already get excited about coming out at the same time that just are very different.
Yeah.
But
here's
no
another two movies.
Real prediction.
Yeah. I've got two movies that I want to pitch just because these are two movies that I've really wanted to see made for a long time. And this is, the common theme is classical literature. The first being The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I would love to see that made in like a really good movie with just like almost no dialogue, because that's how the book is. It's all just kind of him and his thought process and stuff, but the story and what's actually going on is really, really interesting. So the way you would do it is basically like no dialogue in the actual story, but maybe like flashbacks or things that he's thinking about and stuff like that. Always wanted to see that. And then you can release it on the same day as the other movie that I would really like to see made, which is The Count of Monte Cristo, but filmed in the style of the Les Mis movie, with all those like hyper close-ups. Because Les Mis, regardless of what you think about that movie and like the music, that movie is beautiful visually.
Yeah, I love that movie, honestly.
I love it too. A lot of people trash on it, but I think it's great. But The Count of Monte Cristo is awesome, and the movie for it's cool, but it's not at all what the book is.
Yeah.
And I would love to see a really book-accurate and very artistically shot Count of Monte Cristo movie.
Seriously.
So you release two classical literature book movies on the same day at the same time, it could be pretty sweet.
That would be cool. I also, having a 3-4 hour Count of Monte Cristo and really doing it just
because society is ready for the long movie again.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. Absolutely.
There's lots of long movies, and I want a good Count of Monte Cristo so badly.
Yeah,
a new one that's book accurate, totally. And I don't want it to be a miniseries. There are a lot of great miniseries done, but I think a movie would be awesome.
Yeah.
Something like an epic, like a Napoleon that's coming out later this year, which I am really stoked on. I think that could be awesome.
And it's Ridley Scott, and it's made now, so I wouldn't be surprised if that movie is like 3 hours and 45 minutes long.
It is 3 hours. It's going to be very long. Oh. Yeah, it's at least 3 hours. And then we've talked about this with Martin Scorsese's movie Killers of the Flower Moon. Is 206 minutes, which is 3.5 hours basically. Yep. Yep.
Hey, no, we just said we're ready for it.
We're ready for it.
Let's all go.
I'm really excited for it.
Let's go support these movies. If you need, take a pillow and just nap time. If it's not your thing, let's just make sure we go and support.
You can watch that NPC TikTok lady if you get bored for a little bit.
Oh, dude, those memes are so funny.
Gang gang. Yes,
where it's just like Oppenheimer playing in the background. It's like,
ice cream's so good.
This crap is too long, and it's just that on their phone.
Just like a Subway Surfer video at the bottom of the screen.
I think we've had a good episode of lots of good titillating discussion. I think we did it. We watched Barbenheimer, guys. We conquered it. We conquered Barbenheimer in one night. Kind of want to do it again, not gonna lie. I don't think I'm gonna do them both on the same night, but I do want to rewatch them both. But while they're in theaters.
I'd like to see either of them again. So, well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to do more for our egos than just listen, you can also go to Spotify or Apple Music and rate this friggin' podcast a whole 5 stars. You also, if you recommend this podcast to two of your friends and both of them recommend it to two of their friends and so on, then we'll have like a lot of people listening to the podcast, and then we can maybe make $14 off of Spotify for podcasters.
Shout out to
Thanks
our
for
actual real life
sponsoring.
sponsors.
Our actual real life potentially paid sponsor.
That's
We
just
are
the
very
app we
excited.
use to publish the podcast through.
Hey, that's truly how you got to do it. Is
Yeah.
get the people who are using your product to promote it.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, it's like it'd be like if you were a writer and they were like, "Hey, we're Word, the software you use to write on. We're going to sponsor." It's like, okay, cool, yeah, sure, I guess so. I'm using it on it already, so might as
Yeah.
well
Well,
talk
and
about how
also
I like
in such a dominated market, it's like, oh, do you want us to advertise you so that people don't go to your competitors for posting podcasts? Like, where else are people posting?
it. Exactly.
Their podcasts
what
through?
else?
So,
Yeah. What are the other?
whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
options? Who
We
knows?
love Spotify for
If
podcasts.
they're
Don't
smart,
get
they
me
love
wouldn't go anywhere else.
Exactly.
Because podcasters for Spotify has it all.
Yep,
Yeah.
they certainly do.
So,
And thanks
also,
for listening.
You can, thank you so much for listening. Shout outs to Kel real quick from
And Bazinga.
Easy Law, Britton Inkley, Riley Allen, Ian James Martin, sorry, and Hannah Steed. If you guys want to also give a shout out to Kel, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mancavemovienight. We also have a website, mancavemovienight.com, where you can learn more about us. And
And the show. And listen to it through
and the
there.
show, I suppose. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you on another Man Cave Movie Night Monday.